Hi, welcome. This is a quick presentation on invoice processing using Nuance Document Imaging's AutoStore capture solution with its add-on OpenForms360. The benefits of automation are quite simple in the fact that by actually automating the capture of business information, whether that information comes from databases, whether it comes from human intervention, or whether it comes from in the form of documentation, whether that's paper, electronic, etc., allows a business to actually operate much more efficiently, accelerating the business processing and shortening the processing times. It reduces the exception processing, enhances customer relationships, allows a business to be much more compliant and be visible, and it allows the improvement of actually information sharing and reduces costs by actually deploying a secure capture processing platform, reduces the amount of paper. Once anything paper is captured digitally, it can stay within the process and be managed, and it automates manual tasks, extracting invoice information, for example, from the invoice to be entered into back-end systems. The idea of automated recognition is to provide actually an automated system where documents can actually be passed to the system in a multitude of ways, whether that's actually scanning the document at a high-speed scanner or using an Office multifunction device, whether that's actually importing directly from a file import or an FTP site, or capturing stuff being sent directly to a business via email. Or actually capturing the stuff through a smart device and passing the document that you may well have received in an email to your tablet into the process. And it does that by actually separating the documents, classifying them based on a set of information that it understands about the document, and then extracting the relevant data from that document type. It handles a number of types of documents, and the one we're actually going to look at predominantly in this short presentation is actually semi-structured documents, and they are typical business documents. An invoice is a typical semi-structured document. It follows a general layout pattern. Every invoice that we deal with and we see in our business lives has certain characteristics that all stay the same. An invoice will have an invoice title on it somewhere. It will have an invoice number. It will have an invoice date. It will tell you who it's from and who you've so you know who you've got to pay. It will give you the total amounts that you need to pay for that invoice. So you know the net amount, the VAT amount or tax amount, and the total amount. So those pieces of information we know are on that document. We're just not quite sure where they are. So it's not a structured document because they're not always in the same place for every vendor, but it's semi-structured because it follows a set pattern of rules. And we're going to deal with semi-structured documents in this short presentation. We're going to use the technology within the OpenForms360 add-on for AutoStore, and it's a little bit of a black boxing processing. It's an extraction rules base that's actually been built around the processing of over 4,000 vendors of invoices, over about 450,000 invoices in a sample of around 25 languages, giving us a very ideal recognition rate of over 95%. It continues to be refined, and the use of actually the database lookups to corroborate the data and validate the data before human validation allows us to do things like supplier invoice lookup to ensure we match the supplier's invoice details, their name, their address, their telephone number, their bank details, their tax or VAT ID to a vendor database and come back with a vendor account number. So the invoice extraction module has standard fields which are predefined for pulling things out, like the invoice vendor, the invoice number, the date, the order number. The line items can be added to it if required. The net amount, the currency, the total amount, the VAT, etc., and the shipping expenses. It supports a number of countries, and there's a few. Most of them are listed here, so it's generally any of the countries that are in sort of the Western European, plus America. And you'll see when I actually show you some of the sample invoices later, a lot of these invoices are multi-language invoices. I'm not just capturing invoices that are in the English language. There's some Dutch in there, there's some German in there, etc. But it can cope with that and understand these different languages. So we go to a quick demonstration. In this demonstration, what the process will actually do, just to give you an understanding, is I've got a lot of invoices that I've captured here, and if I quickly show you, just to show you can see that they're actually a number of invoices. They've all been scanned. They're scanned in slightly different ways, etc. But they're all different, and they're all different invoices from different companies, etc. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to start this off. So I'm going to tell it using auto capture. So I've set a process here with auto capture to do invoice extraction. It's an auto capture action, so it's not actually going to pop up a form or anything or ask me for any information. And what it's going to do is it's going to send all those invoices through the process, and eventually after I've validated them, they will appear in this directory in a folder based on the account number and the vendor's name. So what we're going to extract from each of these invoices, if we pick one, for example, we're going to actually extract. Sorry, I didn't want to capture it again. What I wanted to do is open it. Where's it gone? Sorry, it won't let me open. There we go. Open. If I open an invoice, what we're going to do is we're going to capture things like the vendor information. We're going to capture the invoice number. We're going to capture the invoice date. We're going to capture the total amounts, etc. The gross amount, the net amount, the VAT, the total invoice amount, etc. are all going to be captured, and we do that through passing it through a process, and that process is effectively AutoStore is capturing it. In this case, it's not doing a great deal. It's just capturing it. It's passing it to the AutoStore add-on of OpenForms360, and 360 is classifying the document by looking for pieces of information to decide it is an invoice. Once it's decided it's an invoice, it's then extracting a number of pieces of information, and we'll see those pieces of information when we actually get something, hopefully through to the validation station. If I refresh this, hopefully we'll see something starting to come through. So this is the validation client, and it allows me to check, and you can see here I've started to get some invoices through. I've set this to actually pass most of the invoices through, so even though everything will be good, it's still passing it through. So what you can see here is a number of fields that are extracted, so things like the document type. This is an invoice, the invoice vendor, the invoice number, the currency, the date of the invoice, etc. A few pieces of information, and there's a couple of empty fields, which is the ones that's highlighted, which is why it's got here, because we've got a state empty, and that's the invoice order number. It doesn't know where it is on this document. Now I could zoom in and find it, or I could enter it. So if I could zoom into the document, if I knew what the order number looked like, for example, it might be that one. We'll go for that one. I can then enter that by just clicking on the document and say validate, go through. And the same thing will apply. You can see here, this is an empty field. It's not found it, but it's found everything else on the form. And I can decide whether I actually need it. When I've decided actually I don't want that field in with anything in, I'll pass it empty. Again, going through, and it's only highlighting the empty fields. You can see on this one, it's got the total amount from the invoice. It's not managed to find the tax amount or any of the other details on there. So what I can do is I can tell it what the net amount is. So the net amount was there. I can tell it that the VAT amount was there. I can tell it the VAT rate was there, and I can then pass that through and let it go through the process, and so on. I can carry on, and I can validate each of these invoices in turn, checking the fields that are actually not been extracted. And you see most of the time the invoice, it's the actual expenses amount, which is the difference. Effectively, I think if you had delivery charges or something like that, that would come in through expenses. So if I look through, I can just validate these ones. You can see they're all coming through now. So there was, I think it was 25 I sent through, and you see here this one was skewed, but it still managed to actually straighten everything up and tell me where it's found everything. So I can go through, and each of the fields looks pretty good. I'll just validate them all. See it go through. I don't think we're far off the end. Obviously, users that are actually allowed to validate are controlled by the administrator. So if I'm a user that's allowed to validate invoice extraction, and it tells me that these have all come from the invoice extraction sitemap. So I know this is invoice extraction. I know the fields. I know how confident it is on each of the fields. So you can see here, invoice total currency. It's 98% confident. Invoice date, sorry, it's 98% confident that it's read that correctly, and I can allow that to go through based on what I've actually seen. And we're coming to the end here now. So these will all get validated. And what happens then once I've validated these invoices and decided they are correct, what will happen is they'll then pass back to AutoStore, and they pass back to AutoStore with all these fields. So all this information here, invoice type, the invoice vendor, the invoice number, etc. All that information is passed back to AutoStore. Now AutoStore can then use that to actually pass the information to an account system, use it to store the invoices into a document management system or an ERP system, etc. I'll use it to just post. So in the example here, you can see this is that folder back again. So you can see here I've started to get accounts been built. They've all been built very recently, and I can go into each one of these and I can see the fact that I have an invoice. I've even converted them to a PDF, so I can see what the PDF looks like. So there's the invoice as a PDF, and all I've done at the moment is actually just collected that information and created it as a text file. So you can see here the document type, invoice number, the date of the invoice, the vendor number, the amount, the net amount, the VAT amount, the total amount, and what the currency was. And I can do that. I can check that for each of those. Now that could be, I could create that as a direct feed into a document management system, into a SharePoint, into an accounting system, or I could create an XML which is passed, etc. What you can do with data is absolutely amazing. So that's actually a quick look at using AutoStore and OpenForms for invoice processing, and you saw how quickly that was to actually extract that data and push that data on. That's much faster than somebody having to type in that data and look for it. I hope you enjoyed that. If you've got any questions, please contact us. So that was a quick demonstration. So just to recap, AutoStore and OpenForms, for example, is an add-on to AutoStore. It gives AutoStore a complete and unique value proposition in the fact that with AutoStore, you have this ability to collect documents and data from multiple sources, whether they are multifunction devices, whether they're network scanners, whether those documents are being collected via electronic files from, as you just saw, a user using auto capture to capture the file, whether where AutoStore is monitoring a folder or a selection of folders, whether it's monitoring an FTP site, whether it's monitoring an email account, etc., whether the documents are actually being sent in by your own users for smart devices, or whether actually you're running high-speed 200, 300 page a minute scanners. Those documents are captured, they're passed to AutoStore and OpenForms. They're then part of this recognition, classification and extraction process, this automated process that makes use of optical character recognition, of intelligent character recognition and intelligent document recognition, reads all that data, extracts it, passes it back to AutoStore, and AutoStore processes can then continue within your business, where ultimately the document may again be converted, the data may be transferred, perhaps sent as emails sent, uploads done to electronic systems, CRM systems, finance systems, etc., or anything really with open connectivity from AutoStore. So I hope you enjoyed that demonstration, that quick demonstration. If you have any questions, please contact your Nuance Document Imaging partner for any more information.